This audiobook is rated PG-12A due to slightly explicit content. Take care.
Any historical inaccuracies should just be accepted as being an old wives' tale.
14th of October, 1070. Princess Naya blissfully skipped across the palace halls, her short purple dress complementing her tall black boots as they clacked upon the floor. Her tall purple tiara hung upon her silky black hair streaked with pink and blue. She'd settled in well with the royal life with lots of help from her new family, particularly her friend Princess Lola, who was around her age. They occasionally fought, but they were best friends at heart. Crimson also got the chance to become much closer to Princess Fleur. Aaron was no longer the only thing keeping them connected. Everyone and everything in New Equivalus had never truly felt this complete. Crimson and Aaron walked together through the halls of the West Wing, lit brightly in dawn haze.
It's a lot bright around here, isn't it?
Aaron asked as they walked.
Everything feels a little more connected.
Crimson smiled in return. In that moment, a face that Crimson had never seen before crossed paths with them. He was almost as tall as Crimson. He was nowhere near Aaron's height. He had deep cerulean hair brushed to the side of his pale face, revealing timid sapphire eyes. He was dressed in a grey tunic, complete with a knight's helmet.
Your Highness,
he spoke, his voice soft and medium in pitch.
I have positioned the guards across the southern wing as you requested. Is there anything else you desire? That would be all, thank you, replied Aaron.
The guard bowed. His eyes then met with Crimson's. She smiled and blushed lightly. He bowed for her and headed back in the opposite direction. Who was that? Crimson asked once he'd left.
Our new Sergeant Major. I believe his name is Centurion. He's the new leader of the Royal Guards and Soldiers,
Aaron began. He turned to Crimson, who was looking back in Centurion's direction. Aaron laughed.
Infatuated?
Crimson paused. No, just curious. She smiled. The dawn morphed into the afternoon. Fleur exited her chamber to see a struggling sergeant amongst two pressuring princesses. This way, Naya! No! This way, Lola! Lola! Naya! What's going on? Fleur asked the two. Oh, we're giving Centurion a tour of the castle, Lola explained. Centurion smirked before looking off at the silver palace halls decked in colourful tapestries. Oh, Centurion, it's lovely to meet you. Aaron's been telling me a lot about you. Fleur smiled. Centurion bowed lightly for the princess. Pleasure to meet you, my princess. He smiled before heading off south. Hey, wait, the tour, Lola called. Actually, I'm headed to my chamber. It's where I need to pick up my sword. With that, he went behind the corner. Not before crashing into someone in a rush. Sorry, called Crimson in an awkward tone as she picked herself up off the floor. Centurion did the same, flipping his hair off his eyes. My queen, I'm terribly sorry, Centurion exclaimed, bowing apologetically. No, it's all right. This happens all the time. Crimson lied. On the latter, that was. He smiled and swiftly moved on. Crimson took a deep breath and continued back toward her chamber. Thinking back upon her interactions with him, she smiled and sunk back against the wall. Yes! Had she ever been this madly in love before? Night fell gracefully, the moonlit harbour ever watched by the stars and the smell of the sea salt from below. Centurion sat upon the dock looking down upon his blue reflection. As the ocean's course changed with the tide, he thought of how his life had changed like the sea. He had finally felt free, a freedom he never would have had back in his old home of South Equivalus. Free from the toxic memories of a sibling who left a long time ago, for fortune, fame, or forgery. He wondered if his mother was happy as a result of his absence. Did his father miss him back? Crimson looked down from her balcony. The sight of the city and the blue harbour, the sight of Centurion sparked something deep inside her. Centurion sat upon his reflection for a long 15 minutes. A warm presence shifted his attention.
He turned. Crimson was stood upon the start of the dock. She smiled at him.
We haven't been properly introduced before.
No, he replied, bowing quickly. She walked up to him.
No need to bow. First time's a charm.
She smirked. She sat down beside him. Centurion didn't know what to say. He smirked out of shyness. It was all on Crimson this time. She thought for a few minutes of what to say next. Centurion remained silent. She looked to him, his eyes focused upon the coast. Having him close made her heart flutter and her mind elevate, a feeling she'd not felt in a long time.
Have you met my cousin Aaron?
She finally asked. I'd first spoken to him back home in South Equivalus. He reached out to me in a response letter to my request to join the Royal Military Force. He replied, his eyes still focused on the line between the sky and the sea.
What's it like back there, in South Equivalus?
Quiet. There's nothing left. Even after 2 decades, the damage from North Equivalus is still there. Crimson paused.
What's your opinion on North Equivalus?
Can't say much. Never been. Crimson took into account how focused he was on the tide.
What is it about the sea that entrances you?
I was once a sailor. Either way, a soldier's life is my future. Crimson smiled.
The ocean scares me.
She laughed. She looked upon Centurion's sword. It was like looking into a mirror.
Your sword is awfully shiny. Did your wife polish it for you?
No, Centurion laughed. One of the servants polished it for me. I don't have a wife. Never have I ever felt a romantic attraction before.
I see how it is.
Crimson was overjoyed inside. There was a small silence. Centurion, a third voice called. Someone is waiting for you in the guard's common room. Centurion looked up to see Aaron stood upon the harbour. All right, thanks. With that, he left. Second time meeting Centurion? Aaron asked.
Third.
Crimson stood up. Aaron smiled. So, what brings you to the harbour?
Nothing, just wanted to introduce myself.
She smirked. Really? This is a first.
Yes, because all the other guards hate me from first sight.
She paused.
Except for the veterans, of course. They're lovely.
Is that all? Aaron smiled and looked Crimson dead in the eye. Crimson's blood thinned and her eyes widened.
Oh, Aaron, I am infatuated.
She fell back into Aaron's arms. Oh, Crimson, I think you're more than just infatuated.